Hello everybody. In this video we're going to take a look at a quick and easy way to animate a fish swimming. So let's go ahead and get started. So normally when I animate a creature or character, I create a skeleton and rig and I bind my character to that skeleton. We're going to animate this fish swimming in a much simpler way that is not going to involve creating a skeleton rig or doing any skin weights. This is simply a polygon mesh. I'm going to make sure that I don't have any translate, rotate, or scale information here. And currently my character is at the origin of my world space. What I'm going to do is go to Deform, make sure you're in your modeling menu set, go to Deform, and find the non-linear deformers. And the one that we're going to be using is the sine wave. So I will go ahead and apply that to my character, or creature, rather. This is the deformer here. Right now it's set on this axis of up-down. Let's see what it does. So with my deformer selected, I'll come over to my channel box and look at the inputs here. I have a number of different channels here. The first one we'll look at will be the amplitude here, which is currently set to 0. Let's increase that number. And here you'll see that it is deforming our mesh. Now, the problem is that it's not deforming it in the right axis right now. If we were to animate this, this is what it's going to look like. So what I'm going to do is rotate my deformer here. I will rotate it, in this case, 90 degrees on the rotate X. And now it is in the axis that I want it to be swimming in. So you'll notice that if I select the offset channel and I change its value, in fact that's what we'll be animating when we make this swimming, this is the movement that I get, which is quite convincing. It looks good. However, it's perhaps a bit much. We'll go ahead and return to the amplitude property and we'll just decrease that. Something a little more subtle, perhaps like that. Then when we animate the offset, we'll get swimming motion more like this, which is a little more believable. Now generally, anything in Maya that you can change a value on, you can change that value over time and therefore it will be animated. So in my timeline, I'm going to make sure that I'm on frame 1, the very beginning, and I'm going to key the offset property here. So I'm just going to right click on it. Let me actually bring the offset back down to -10 here, and I'll go ahead and key that, and then I'll scrub in my timeline to the end of the timeline, and I'll take that offset value and I'll increase it, in this case to a value of 10, and I'll go ahead and key that. I'm simply right clicking on the name offset and then selecting key selected. That will set a keyframe on that channel on my current frame, which is frame 120. Let me go ahead and rewind this and we'll play it and take a look at what it looks like. Now, one thing you'll notice when I play the animation is that we have a slow out at the beginning and a slow in. I want the fish to look like it's just continually swimming. So what I'm going to do is make a quick change to my animation curve in the graph editor. And to do that, I will go to, with the deformer selected, I will go to Windows, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. And what you'll notice here is that the beginning of our animation curve, we have a slow out. It gets faster and faster. In other words, it changes value more quickly over time here. And then once again, it slows down as it approaches the end here. That is our slow in. Slow out, slow in. If I eliminate the slow out and slow in, then we'll get more linear movement, and the fish will appear to just be continually swimming at a constant rate. So I will select my animation curve, and I will click on this button here, which will convert my animation curve to something linear. In other words, very constant speed over the length of its animation. Now, if I play this, it'll swim at that constant rate. Now, before we move on, let's just take a look at a few more properties here. Not only can we animate the offset here, and we can adjust the amplitude, either increasing it or decreasing it. We can also change the wavelength, which is currently set to 2. Let's see what happens if we increase that 2 to a value of 4. Or if we decrease that value to 0.5. So using these various controls here, you can really adjust the wavelength here to get the swimming movement or motion that you desire. Right now we're getting a little bit of a pop at the end because the beginning of the animation is not posed identically to the end of the animation. Now let's take a look at a couple more things regarding this sine deformer here. I'm going to go ahead and play this and open up my outliner so that we can see everything that is in our scene. Currently, I have the actual deformer selected. Let's see what happens with that selected if I move that deformer. Notice that if I move the deformer outside of the bounds of this fish, that it in fact no longer has the same effect on the fish. Moving the deformer back, we get the movement that we desire here. Let's see what also happens if I move the actual fish model itself. Once again, notice that we're not getting the same movement because it's been offset from its deformer. So I'm pretty happy with the way that this is looking right now. However, it might be nice to actually have the fish swimming through our 3D environment here. So let's see how we can go about doing that. Now you'll remember that an issue that we just came upon or experienced here is the problem when either the fish or its deformer are offset from one another. So we really do want to keep these two nodes, the fish model and the nonlinear deformer, together. And to do that, what I'm going to do is select both of the objects, and I'm going to go to Edit, Group. And perhaps I'll go ahead and name this. And let's just talk a little bit about what this is going to give us here. So now that I have the deformer and the model grouped under this node here, that's going to allow me to select the group itself, and I can easily move both the model and the deformer together without losing my swimming movement. That means that actually I could animate this group if I wanted in 3D space. So for instance, let's just give this a try. I'll go ahead and key my group, scrub my timeline to frame 120, and I'll just animate the fish moving forward and key that as well. Rewind, and we'll go ahead and play this. So I think that's looking pretty convincing, but I think there's something a little more interesting that we can do with this. So I'm going to once again select my group, and I'm going to eliminate or get rid of the animation on that group. And instead of directly animating the group here, what we'll do is we'll use what is called a motion path. So first step, I need to create a path that we'll use as this motion path. I'm simply going to go to Create, Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool. And I think I'll draw this from the top viewport here. I'm going to click 1, 2, 3 times. Once I click the 4th time, I'll start to get my curve here, and I'm just going to make a nice kind of serpentine path for my fish here, and I'll press Enter. I can go in here and further adjust the path if I need to. And right now you'll notice it's actually on one plane here. But by coming here to my perspective view, we can further alter that to make a more interesting path for our fish. Now that we have our path, we'll go ahead and attach the fish to the path. And this is also another place where having grouped the deformer with the fish mesh in this trout group here is going to make this a little bit easier for us. So I'm going to make sure and select the group so that both the deformer and the fish model will move with it. And I'll shift select my path here, and I'm going to change over to my animation menu set, and I will go to Constrain, Motion Paths, Attach to Motion Path. And we can go ahead and play this and see what we have going on here. Okay, there's a couple things that I think we can improve upon here. First of all, the fish is not oriented in the proper direction. If we scrub in here, you can see that we actually want the fish facing forward along the path. So that'll be a very easy fix. I'm going to open up my outliner. I will select my group. That is what the motion path, that's what's been attached to our motion path here. With that group selected, I'll come over to my channel box and I'm going to click on, under the inputs, motion path 1, and these are the various properties of our motion path. Just so that you understand, the U value with this little pink tick mark here indicates that that is what is currently animated. So in other words, the U value is its position on this curve. If we rewind it, you'll notice that its position is at 0. If I scrub in my timeline to the end, you'll notice that its U value is 1. And if we go to, let's say, frame 60, which is halfway, you'll notice it's approximately 0.5 in value on there, so it's approximately halfway. Now, the other thing that you will notice is that we actually have some other channels here. We've got the front twist, up twist, and side twist. Let's take a look at what those do. I'll select the front twist, and you can see that I can adjust its position on the front twist value. We've got our side twist as well, but the one that we're going to want to use in this case is the up twist. And by adjusting that, we're going to be able to make the fish face down the direction of the motion path. I'm going to go ahead and input an exact value here of 90. Now, if we play this, we should get a better result. A couple other things I would like to fix. I think that it feels to me like the fish is swimming too quickly for this path here. And also there's a slow in and a slow out in the animation that I would like to eliminate. So let's go ahead and do that now. First of all, if I want the fish to swim more slowly, I'm going to need more frames. Currently I have 120 frames. Let's try changing my timeline to 300. Now the problem is that initially when we created the motion path, it does it for the length of your timeline. And at the time, 120 was the end, so if we play this, you'll notice the fish will swim, but once it gets to frame 120, it will stop, even as the timeline continues to play. So what we need to do is change that U value of 1 from frame 120 to frame 130. I can do that a couple different ways. I can select it in my timeline by shift selecting, and then I can move it in time using my left mouse button. Or I could also open up my graph editor, and we can take that end point of our curve and we can just drag it to the end, or we could even just input in an exact value in this field here. I'm going to make it 300. So now the fish will take longer to travel along its path. Now we still have the slow out here, and we're going to still have the slow in at the end as well. And the fish stopped doing its swimming movement as well. I did kind of forget about that, but we'll fix that in a moment. Let's first get rid of that slow out and that slow in by opening up our graph editor and making the path linear. And regarding its swimming movement, which you can see stops after frame 120, what I'm going to do is open up my outliner. I will select my deformer, the sine 2 handle, open it up in my graph editor. Here it is. If I wanted to slow down the animation, I could take the last key and drag it to the right, or if I wanted to speed it up, I could drag it to the left. What I actually want to do is just make this continual movement happen. So I'll select my curve. I'm going to go to Curves, Post Infinity, Cycle with Offset, and that will make the fish just swim on and on and on forever. Okay, let's go ahead and play this and see how it looks. And it's looking pretty good. I think it could use some adjustments to make it look a little more convincing. So I might spend a few moments tweaking it. So I'll get back to you in just a moment. So I just adjusted some of the various parameters. No new parameters, nothing that I haven't already discussed before. Here is what I have so far, my fish swimming in the environment. If we want to hide the curve, we could say show none and then maybe just show polygon objects. Maybe I'll hide the grid as well. And you can see the fish swimming in the environment. And there you have it. That's a simple, easy, quick way to animate something like a fish. Now, before wrapping this up, perhaps I'll show you one more thing. And that is another way that we could have this fish swimming. Not going to be exactly appropriate for this particular fish, but depending on what you're animating, this might be useful. I'm going to go ahead and select that deformer, the sine wave deformer, go to its inputs, and if you remember, we could adjust its orientation here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate that deformer actually, so that we get swimming on a different axis. Let's go ahead and just rotate the, in this case, the z-axis 90 degrees, and you'll notice that now we get a different swimming behavior. That could also be more kind of interesting. It's almost more porpoise-like, not really appropriate for our fish here, but nevertheless kind of interesting. I'll go ahead and change that back. So there you go. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.